What's the role of a chamber of commerce? It's not just a group of the coolest people in town. Well, it is that, but it's also the unified voice of our regional business community that creates and promotes an environment where businesses can flourish. 1,100 businesses put their trust in the Columbia Chamber to provide leadership in our community. The Columbia Chamber is a proactive organization that rises up to find solutions that benefit the Midlands, like supporting our military community, soldiers, veterans, and their families. But the big question is, how is the Columbia Chamber relevant for the future? Change. In order to be relevant and to serve the community, we have to keep changing. The Columbia Chamber has undergone a series of significant adjustments to strengthen its operations and build capabilities for the future. Like the year 2040. 20 plus years from now, when all of the things that you didn't plan for remind you that, well, you should have planned for them. But the Columbia Chamber thinks ahead. So in early 2017, the Chamber convened nearly 100 regional stakeholders to discuss and debate the trends most likely to impact the region's future. We called the meetings the Strategic Foresight Labs. And we asked one big question. How can we be ready for the future? And what's the Chamber's role in the future? Okay, so that's two questions, but we had 100 really smart people in the room. So we wanted to get the most out of it. We promised them lunch. The least they could do is answer one or two questions. The trouble was, no one really knew how to plan by thinking outside of the box. So we hired a futurist. A futurist is someone who, well, they make you think of scenarios to plan for the future that you wouldn't normally think of. They're weird, but smart. Really smart. We didn't want to just look back and update the same old strategic plan that had been on the shelf. We needed to explore predictions and new possibilities about the future. We didn't just need to think outside the box. We needed a new box to think with. So that's why we hired a really smart futurist and stretched the patience of 100 really smart business leaders for 2 full days over the span of 2 months. After all, we had bought them lunch, so the least they could do was give us some answers. The consensus from this well-fed group was that the Columbia Chamber has an important role to play in the region's prosperity as we head into the future. The results were prioritized by the Chamber's Executive Committee, detailed by a steering committee comprised of Foresight Lab participants in collaboration with a team of professional futurists. We got the answers to our questions. And we now have new strategic priorities to use as the framework to guide us into the future. Let's take a look. Number 1, the Chamber has to connect people who share an interest in putting the Midlands on the map. And we have to do this by working together and pulling for a common goal. The Chamber must create and utilize tools like political action committees, report cards, and grassroots advocacy efforts to wield greater influence on public policy issues that affect the business community. The Chamber has a robust leadership program and alumni program, but the population is shifting and diversifying. The Chamber must create more leadership and public service programs to work with the more diversified community of the future. What's the result of this? A deeper and more capable bench of talent for the region. The Chamber must foster, encourage, and demand transparency and accountability from every elected and appointed person. The Chamber must begin exploring public-private partnerships, or P3, as a means to fund infrastructure projects. We're doing all this while we educate the business community on the effects and unintended consequences of issues that impact the cost of doing business in the region. Collaboration between local government entities, business, and other stakeholders is a must for the region to be successful. But collaboration doesn't just happen. Someone needs to step up and orchestrate. Chamber Foresight Lab participants determined that connecting and convening is a perfect role for the Columbia Chamber. The Columbia Chamber believes in our potential. Our region is growing. and we must ensure that we are prepared for the accelerated pace of change. We must choose to grow by choice rather than chance. It's a moment, and it's a movement, and it's a future, our future, the Columbia Chamber and you, forward together.